I'm Joe Bailey, and welcome to another edition of 805 Sports Talk. So the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about the Santa Maria and Pioneer Valley football teams, and this week, those two teams meet in the Main Street Melee. Santa Maria is coming off a 22-20 win over Righetti. Meanwhile, Pioneer Valley lost at Arroyo Grande 38-7. And this matchup is more intriguing than years past. The teams are a combined 5-2, though last year Pioneer Valley did beat Santa Maria 28-0. After the Saints beat Righetti last Friday night, I caught up with Santa Maria head coach Dan Ellington and running back Robert Ruiz and talked about their win and the upcoming game Friday night against Pioneer Valley.
You guys beat Righetti, man. How's it feel?
It feels great. We worked really hard, and it was a rough week. It was grades week, so pushing the kids to make sure they get grades and preparing and all those things that head football coaches do during this time of the year, and to come out and play a real good team. They were a good matchup for us, and it was a battle all the way, and it felt like the good old days. Righetti and Santa Maria, and it was a great, fun game. It was a good game to be on top, for sure.
I think as a coach, you'd probably love to see everybody step up, and that's what happened tonight. Zool, Contreras, Angel Esparza threw a pass. Blake didn't have his biggest night. Isaiah's there, Ricky's there. Everybody stepped up tonight. How does it feel to see everybody just have a big play tonight?
Well, it's great, to get the whole team involved and guys like those guys. Those guys you mentioned right there. You don't see their names in the paper much, but they are the hardest working guys we have on our football team, and to see them get some fun and some recognition is really good.
And it was a 22-year drought, is that right, against Righetti?
Well, I guess someone just told me, and honestly, I didn't know this since 1987. So I don't know. Do the math.
Okay.
27 years.
I think 29 years.
Oh, whatever. Yeah. I know that. I was on the first team at Righetti that beat Santa Maria after 18 years.
Okay.
And now being on this side is kind of interesting. And then when I was at PV, I was the head coach of the PV team the first time they beat St. Joe. So I guess I can hang that on the wall or something. I don't know.
Hey, you guys beat Righetti, man. I know that's a big win. How's it feel to beat those guys?
It's honestly all I wanted these 3 years I've been in high school. Really, honestly. I just wanted. I don't know. I haven't liked crosstown rivals. I just wanted to beat them. I don't really know what to say.
What do you think carried you guys tonight? The
run game, definitely.
Was the line opening up holes? What
Yes.
was there for? Where were you seeing there running the ball?
Just cut up field. Our line was doing a great job, and I just cut up field. And I had a little help from Isaiah Garcia.
Yeah, what about Isaiah tonight? He had a big kick return. He was solid running the ball tonight.
Big help. Very big help.
What's next for you guys? You got PV next week. You guys going to keep this going?
I don't know. Work hard, and we'll see. We just want this win.
So Santa Maria's win over Righetti was an especially big one for Coach Dan Ellington. He is a Righetti grad. He graduated from Righetti in 1982 and played for the Warriors. But just for the entire Santa Maria program, that was a big win. It ended a 22-year drought. Another interesting note, when Ellington was playing for Righetti, he ended an 18-year drought of Righetti losing to Santa Maria. So there's a lot of interest there. And Ellington was also the previous coach at Pioneer Valley, and that's who they play Friday night. So there's a lot of interesting things there with Ellington's history and being so connected to both programs. So Friday night, that's going to be a big matchup with Santa Maria, and that will be our game of the week. We'll be live webcasting that one from Santa Maria High School Friday night. So I think that's going to be a big matchup. Both teams are pretty similar. Pioneer Valley can run and pass the ball. Both teams have a playmaking quarterback. Pioneer Valley has Matthew Garcia. Santa Maria has Blake Truitt. They're both juniors, and both teams really have good rushing attacks. Santa Maria has, of course, Isaiah Garcia, who just had a huge week last week against Righetti, and Ruiz had 110 yards and a rushing touchdown. Pioneer Valley has Emmanuel Alcantar, who had a breakout game against Napomo, and Michael Bourbon's also a good playmaker over there. So I think it's going to be a great matchup. Whenever I pick Santa Maria, they seem to lose. So if I had to pick, I would guess that I would go with Pioneer Valley winning that one 27-25. I don't know if that's going to come true, but we'll definitely keep an eye on that one, and you can tune in live Friday night at 6:45 p.m. Now, that's not the only big game on the Central Coast. Another big one, and one that's happening in the Santa Maria Valley as well, is St. Joseph hosting Arroyo Grande, the team that beat Pioneer Valley last week 38-7. And Elliott, you'll be at that game Friday night.
Yeah, that could be the other huge game here on the Central Coast, Arroyo Grande at St. Joe. Arroyo Grande lost its opener this year to Lompoc and then has won 3 straight, as you said, Pioneer Valley last week. And then They beat two Bakersfield schools, Garces and Independence, to get to 3-1. St. Joe's had a really tough early season. They're 2-2, but they lost to two Division II schools, Notre Dame and St. Bonaventure. They beat their cross-street rivals, Righetti, and then they handed Bishop Diego their first loss of the year. So this could be an interesting matchup. The two teams play each other. They play hard against each other. Arroyo Grande's the bigger team, and they've got the more experienced quarterback, senior Sawyer May, but they could be without their star linebacker, Sam Ness. He was injured, and we have no word yet whether he's going to be well enough to play. They have a wide receiver named Matt Sill, who comes up with big plays from Sawyer May every game. So that's going to be a tough matchup for the St. Joe's defense. But on the other side of the ball, sophomore quarterback Dino Maldonado has been playing really well. He was at Righetti as a freshman, played on their JV team, and then switched over to St. Joe, and now he's the starter. He's got all kinds of weapons on offense. The main one would be C.J. Cole, who can run, who can catch passes deep. He can do kickoff returns. He's an all-purpose guy. But they've got Nate Guzman, Justin Long, Mason Bealey as wide receivers. So Maldonado has a lot of targets to throw to. And last week he threw 7 for 17. He hit Guzman with a 52-yard pass. So you know he's got a good arm. Guzman scored on a 1-yard run. Cole had a 1-yard touchdown run, and Caleb Manette had a 2-yard touchdown run. And altogether, Cole had 112 yards on 12 carries for a guy who had been a wide receiver exclusively up until this year. But remember, he's a track champion. He's fast. He's one of the fastest kids on the Central Coast. So if he can get deep, he can make it easy for Maldonado to throw touchdowns. But May has got a good crew around him too, and they lost to Lompoc, and that's no shame for anybody because Lompoc's just a juggernaut once again. And we'll be talking more about them in a minute, but when they beat the other three schools, it looked like they'd gotten their offense back in gear. They got a size advantage. Sill had a 44-yard catch last week. Tyler Rocha got a touchdown, 22-yard touchdown run right after that 44-yard catch. So they've got a lot of weapons. I'm looking at it as a tough game. St. Joe's got another preseason game against a team similar to Notre Dame and St. Bonnie's and Bishop Diego. They probably have the toughest preseason schedule of anybody on the Central Coast. But I see Arroyo Grande coming out of this one with a slight edge, 24-21, 28-21, something like that. But it's going to be a good game, and with the Pioneer Valley and Santa Maria game, and Arroyo Grande and St. Joe, those are two barn burners, and if you can, get out and see one of them, because they should both be excellent games. So now we've got San Ynez is going to be home against Templeton, and Kenny is going to be handling that game, so let's hear from him about that.
Yes. Actually, one of the surprises for me last week was how handily San Ynez handled Napomo on the road, especially after coming off a bye, which they really did not want because they had a bunch of momentum going into that one. But they seemed to come off the bye just fine. They won 28-7. Mike McCoy continues to impress. He has capable receivers. His line has shown that they can open some holes for their running backs. I do see San Ynez winning this game against Templeton. I think San Ynez is capable of being a playoff team. I would have to say at this point that Lompoc and St. Joseph, again, look like the top two teams in the LPL. But I think there will be a good battle for third place, what looks to me like an improved Cabrillo team and an improved San Ynez and Pioneer Valley team. I think all three are improved from last year. I think it will be interesting.
Yeah, so there were a lot of big games last week, and we're going to kind of break down what's going to happen this week. you kind of broke down a little bit St. Joe and AG, and I'm just wondering if St. Joe can kind of climb that hurdle this week. They played those two Division II teams really toughly, but weren't able to get away with the win, and it's kind of seemed to be faltering in the second half has been the big problem with St. Joe. So, you know, I wish I was there for that game. It's gonna be a good one, I think. I think the first half is going to be tight. St. Joe has shown that they can play, you know, with about anybody in the first half, but their lack of depth and size have kind of hurt them in the second half, and that's going to be a tough matchup with AG having that size advantage. They have a talented offensive line. They always do. And James Gilmet has found some rhythm as a running back, and we know Sawyer May is going to be, you know, making passes all night. So it's going to be interesting to see if St. Joe can finally beat one of these bigger schools this year. You know, they beat Bishop Diego last week, but that's kind of a better matchup for St. Joe. You know, similar sized schools. I don't know if the Knights are going to be able to do it. Every time I think St. Joseph is going to climb that hurdle against AG, they kind of don't do it. Last year, I think AG won 41-7, and I was thinking, you know, that was like a huge matchup last year, and I was thinking that St. Joe was going to finally, you know, climb on top, and they didn't make it happen, losing 41-7. So I don't know if this is the year that they beat AG. If I had to pick it, I think it might be a 2-touchdown win for AG. You know, I just don't have that much confidence in St. Joe beating a team like AG, because you know, kind of happened in the past where I think they're going to do it and they haven't. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if AG pulls out a 2-touchdown win over St. Joseph, something like 35-21, something like that. St. Joseph's defense has looked really stronger than years past. Fenton Will might be the best linebacker in the area. Maybe, you know, Sam Ness might be up there too, and like you said, we don't know if he's going to play. So that's a huge loss for AG if they don't have Sam Ness, and Fenton Will, and that St. Joseph defense has been impressive, but I just don't know if they have enough to beat AG, and AG is on a roll.
Well, AG has both size and numbers. That's, like you talk about the second half, and that's where they'll come into play. Even if Ness doesn't play, they've got kids to fill in for him, and they're a bigger team. And the second half with St. Joe, you could see them wearing down and just not having the energy, because they just don't have as many kids to throw out on that field to give some of the starters a breather. So that's where I see that St. Joe, you know, a great first half and maybe fading down the stretch.
I'm calling it Arroyo Grande 28, St. Joseph 21, after that big bust-up game last year when I figured it'd be very close. I do think it will actually be close this time, but just don't see St. Joseph quite getting over the top against another team that's ranked in the top 100 by MaxPreps.com. Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame, and St. Bonaventure both are. St. Joseph gave a good account against both, but came up short. I just think Arroyo Grande has a bit too much in all departments for the Knights to prevail in this one.
Yeah, one thing I know for sure, though, is that AG is going to have to bring it if they want to beat St. Joe. It's not going to be a cakewalk like it has been the last couple of years. I know the Knights did have a win over AG several years ago, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. And, you know, kind of talking about those cupcakes and cakewalks, we can turn our attention to Lompoc. The Braves really haven't played anybody since beating AG in week 0. They've just been walking through everybody. They play at Righetti Friday night. And, Kenny, I guess I'll start with you. How do you feel about Lompoc's preseason schedule? Are they playing enough tough teams to get into shape for later on in the season for the playoffs and taking on St. Joe, and maybe when that LPL season tightens up a little bit? Do you think it's good to kind of not have such a tough early season slate and keep your guys fresh? How do you feel about the way Lompoc has started out the season with just pretty much dominating everybody in front of them?
I don't think Lompoc's preseason schedule will hurt them. It's shaping up the same way this year as it has every year the past, at least in the recent past. Lompoc has a hard game against Arroyo Grande. That game always seems to be the marquee matchup on the Central Coast in opening week. Then Lompoc plays considerably weaker teams the rest of the way. Running clocks seem to be the rule. And every year Lompoc runs through the LPL and makes a good showing in the playoffs. So I don't think this preseason schedule will hurt them. To me, this year has followed the same pattern as every year has, at least in the recent past.
Well, they play a reasonably local schedule. I mean, they played San Marcos, but they stick to the Napomo and Templetons and Righettis, and they have an advantage over them, it seems, every year. I'd like to see them add, like St. Joe has played St. Bonaventure and Notre Dame. When those games count on their standings, but they don't count toward their league championship. But now with the new alignment in the playoffs, where it's numbered divisions and strength of schedule and wins and losses are all factored in to where they place the teams in the divisions, you could get every team on the Central Coast could conceivably make the playoffs, or none of them could make the playoffs. Now you'd figure league champions would get in, but Arroyo Grande's in Division II, and they're the only team from the Central Coast that is in Division II. So if they were to have a bad year, they might not get in. There'd be no representative from that league. But I think I'd like to see Lompoc put a couple more tough opponents, because when they get to the playoffs, they have this problem where they haven't had to play 60 minutes, where they have had a lot of running clocks, and they get to put the backups in, and that's good for the backups if somebody gets injured and they have to come in and take over for a starter. But I could see that some of these playoff teams, that there's no 0-10 teams that they're going to be facing in the playoffs. There's no 1-9s. So they're going head-to-head with teams that are been rated as strong as they are in the season, and I think they need to toughen up for that. So I'd like to see them add a couple of tougher preseason games, but they're staying local, and you can't fault them for not wanting to travel any further south than Santa Barbara or any further north than Arroyo Grande. So, and there's plenty of schools from which to choose in that area that are not part of Los Padres League. So it makes sense from a travel standpoint to schedule the local games, but I'd still like to see them add a couple. But they're going to run through this schedule. I don't see anybody, after they got by Arroyo Grande, I don't see anybody on their schedule that could run with them.
Yeah, and that might not be Lompoc's fault. There's probably some programs that don't want to schedule them. They're like, what do we have to gain from playing Lompoc? And they might have get a tough loss playing at Houck Stadium or something like that. Like you see at the college level, a lot of schools don't like scheduling, certain teams, and I think Lompoc might have some of that. Maybe some guys just don't want to play Lompoc, because it's a tough matchup every time. Every time you got to play the Braves, you're in for a tough matchup. So,
Yeah, it's not like college where Alabama can play McNeese State, and McNeese State is guaranteed $1 million just for showing up, and they get to do it at home. They don't have the financial incentive in high school, so that you're right. Some of these teams, like St. Bonaventure, might say, we'd rather play somebody else in our preseason, because they got a tough league and they just want to get everything in sync for the league season. So no sense risking injury or getting beat by a Lompoc team to ruin their reputation.
Yeah, and I think there is one tough matchup in the regular season left for Lompoc, and that's going to be the St. Joe game. And we've seen that kind of decide the LPL championship the last couple of years, and I think that's going to definitely be the case this year, and it's probably going to be probably the toughest matchup yet. I think we saw, was it 2 years ago where Lompoc won by like 2 points, and Richard Foster had like a big punt return, so that was a tough matchup. Last year Lompoc got away pretty easily, and then I think this year it's going to be maybe even tougher if St. Joe can even continue to improve. Dino Maldonado is still kind of evolving and still kind of molding into a good quarterback. So I think that St. Joseph Lompoc game, when we get there, is going to have a lot of hype around it, and it's going to be a fun one to kind of see how that plays out.
Well, in this week's St. Joe Arroyo Grande game will go a long way to tell us, can they be ready for Lompoc, because Arroyo Grande's only loss was to Lompoc, and Arroyo Grande may not lose again this year, although there's still a couple good teams at Tascadero and San Luis Obispo in their own league. Everybody's going to walk over Paso Robles. They just don't seem to have any players. And Righetti is in that league, so I don't see Arroyo Grande having too much of difficulty if they can get past St. Joe. And then how St. Joe stacks up against Arroyo Grande, since Arroyo Grande has already lost to Lompoc, we can then kind of triangulate that and say, well, these are St. Joe's chances. So this is a big game for both teams. But St. Joe, I respect them a lot. I just don't know that they can hang with Arroyo Grande for 60 minutes.
Yeah, and watching the show, we love talking about local sports, but it is fun from time to time to mix in some hot button national topics. And any baseball fans, I think it was Monday night, saw Madison Bumgarner and Yasiel Puig kind of getting into each other's faces. Bumgarner got out, forced out Yasiel Puig at first base, and kind of told him not to look at me when he was walking back to the dugout, and the bench is cleared, bullpen's empty. So it's kind of interesting to see that Dodger-Giant rivalry heat up. I know people around here love Dodger fans love hating on the Giants, and Giants fans love hating on the Dodgers. So it's good to see a September bench clearing nearly a brawl. So Kenny, I know you're a Giants fan. What did you think of that? And it was kind of funny, the reaction afterward. I know, like on Twitter or Instagram, Puig got some shirts made that said "Don't look at me," because that's what Bumgarner was yelling at him. I guess he was mad that Puig was looking at him. How'd you feel about that? Seeing a little bench clearing action going on?
I thought it was a pretty odd circumstance to precipitate a bench brawl, to be honest. Maybe somebody doesn't like it that somebody is looking at him. Nobody was throwing at anybody, and there was no retaliation pitch thrown. I don't think I'm with either one of them. This one, somebody just didn't like that. Had much ado about not guy look at somebody didn't like it, didn't like it.
Well, Puig is still out there. He's setting down the minors, but I don't know that he's mature enough to put him down the minors. He can be a great ball player, but Bumgarner is a great ball player. Excuse me, so we already know that. But I think you're right. It's like, why would Bumgarner even get involved? Just brush it off and walk back to your dugout. You're an all-star. You're on a trajectory that could be a Hall of Fame career. Puig could be a great player if he get out of his own head. I'd just walk away and say, yeah, you're up and down from the minors, kid. Prove yourself on the major league level and stay here and be of value to your team, and then we can argue with each other. But right now, it's like a fly. I just say, walk away.
Yeah, and I thought one thing that was also interesting was a lot of the Dodger fans saying Yasiel Puig would definitely win in a fight against Madison Bumgarner. But I don't think Bumgarner is the guy you'd want to mess with. I think he's like an old school kind of country guy, and he looks a lot bigger in person than he is. I've seen him. He's like 6'5", 250. I know Puig is built like a truck, but I don't think Puig would want to mess with Bumgarner. I know those pitchers are a little different animals. Some people think they're coddled too much, but I don't think Puig would like messing with Madison Bumgarner.
It would not be wise for anyone to mess with Bumgarner.
I think Bumgarner is an old school type of pitcher, though. He's in the National League. He hits, and he hits well. He plays a complete game, and his head is in the game, and I don't think anybody's going to get the best of him. He's been a pinch hitter. How many pitchers do they throw in there as a pinch hitter? So, he's a complete ball player, and you're right, he's big, and I don't think he's one bit afraid of Puig. But you know how baseball brawls are anyway. You maybe get a punch in or something, and the whole world is out there separating everybody. It's all macho stuff. But I guess that's what Bumgarner was just wanting to establish, that I'm the king of this hill. You go back to the dugout. But there's no great reason. I would have just brushed it off and walked away.
It was a typical baseball brawl. A lot of jawing. Nobody was going to get hurt. Nobody did.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you can't make it to Santa Maria High Friday night, be sure to tune in to our webcast game of the week, a pregame show at 6:45 p.m. Pioneer Valley at Santa Maria. That should be a great game. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter and social media, Facebook, all that good stuff. We'll be keeping you guys up to date there.
Of course, online, in print too. Don't forget to pick up your Santa Maria Times. We love doing it for you. We're out there covering all the sports, and you can read all about it online every day, every night, and in print in the Santa Maria Times. So that's going to do it for us this week. Join us again next week on 805 Sports Talk. Until then, thanks for being with us.